Welcome back to New Jersey Power and Politics. I'm Alex Zdan. President Trump is replacing career Foreign Service and intelligence officials with people who are more loyal to him, like Acting Director of National Intelligence Rick Grinnell. My next guest, Congressman Tom Malinowski, spoke with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo about this recently. Welcome back, Congressman.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So your conversation with the Secretary at the Munich Security Conference, what were you trying to express to the Secretary?
So there's an issue at the State Department, but it's more than just the State Department. The President seems to believe that everybody who works for the federal government works for him personally, not for the country, not for the national interest, but serving his personal political interest. He's trying to politicize the intelligence community. He's trying to politicize the Justice Department. He's trying to politicize the State Department, our diplomats. And it is threatening, I think, one of the foundations of our democracy.
You were Assistant Secretary of State during the Obama administration. Wasn't there some politicization of the executive branch departments?
There are political appointees. The Secretary of State is a political appointee, of course. But the thousands of people who work to keep us safe at the FBI, we don't expect FBI agents to be working for the president's reelection. We don't expect the intelligence community, which is supposed to be giving all of us factual information about what's happening in the world, to be considering the president's personal political interests. There are people in our government who are allowed to be political, and there are people in our government who are never allowed to be political, who serve the country, who take an oath to the Constitution, not to a man. Trump is trying to change that. We can't allow that to happen.
What do you think when you hear the phrase deep state?
What I think about is people I worked with, people who spend their careers serving us, protecting our environment, protecting our country and the military, representing us in the diplomatic service, fighting crime in the Federal Bureau of Investigation. These are people who are heroes. These are people who are public servants. And when I hear them being accused of disloyalty, when I hear them being insulted and denigrated on the internet, on cable news, and by the President of the United States, it makes me incredibly angry. That's what we talked to Secretary Pompeo about. Democrats, Republicans in that meeting saying, you've got to defend your people against those attacks.
What kind of reaction did you get from the Secretary?
So when I put it in those terms, and I actually said, look, I said, Mr. Secretary, these attacks are not coming from you. I didn't mention Trump, right? But
his boss.
I'm not blaming you, right? What we need is for you to defend your institution, the people who work for you, who are actually trying their best to support and implement Donald Trump's foreign policy. He reacted okay to that. He said, you know, yes, you're right about that, but the proof's in the pudding. We need to hear him say this publicly, not just privately, to a bunch of members of Congress.
So, of course, during this time, there's an election on the Democratic side to get a presidential nominee together. You've endorsed former Vice President Biden. Would Bernie Sanders, if he is to be successful in winning the nomination, be acceptable to you as the nominee or not?
Look, I endorse Joe Biden because I think he's an incredibly decent and experienced person who I think can build the broadest possible coalition. But when I look at the candidates on that stage, let's remember this. Every single one of them is for universal health care. Every single one of them wants strong gun safety rules. Every single one of them knows climate change is real. Every single one of them would help us get the Gateway Tunnel. Every single one of them would help us get fairer taxes for New Jersey and the SALT deduction back. And every single one of them believes that our leaders should tell the truth, respect the law, and serve as an example for our kids. And so I'd be happy with anybody who meets those criteria, and whoever wins the Democratic nomination will.
And you would support whoever wins the Democratic nomination?
I will absolutely support whoever wins the nomination. Yes.
You mentioned Gateway. There's been some news recently that the Portal Bridge has gone up on the estimation of the Department of Transportation. But how much closer are we to shovels going in the ground?
Well, it's shovel ready. So the moment that check is written, the moment we get that grant, this is going to start going up. That's the good news. In addition, like for the last year since I was elected, the Trump administration has been saying, no way, this project does not qualify, we're not going to help you. We have turned that around through relentless advocacy over the last year. So what they're saying now is the Portal Bridge, which is the first step in the Gateway project, is now qualified for federal funding. Oh, and by the way, we've provided that federal funding. So there's no reason now for this not to happen.
I also wanted to ask you, you've made a cause during your time in Congress of combating the ideals of white supremacy and white supremacist terrorism. New Jersey, just on Friday, raised the threat level of white supremacists here. Do you see it as a clear and present danger, and if so, how?
Well, it is a clear and present danger because we've had attacks, not just from white supremacists, but it is the #1 threat we face in terms of domestic terrorism right now. And we have had people arrested in New Jersey with guns, ready to strike. Thank goodness our law enforcement agencies, working with the federal agencies, have been able to prevent these attacks before they happen. But we have to be vigilant. One success we've had, 2017, the Trump administration, for whatever reason, virtually eliminated all of the funding for the Department of Homeland Security to fight domestic terrorism. I led an effort in the House over the last couple of months to restore that money. We restored every single penny in the budget that we passed in the Trump side.
What will that money do? Just draw a line for me between what that money does and how it combats this ideology.
So that allows DHS to work with state and local governments, state and local law enforcement, to figure out ways to identify these people before they strike, to coordinate their efforts, to coordinate the intelligence. It also allows them to work with nonprofit organizations that do like de-radicalization work, that try to intervene with youth online who are showing signs that they may be drifting in that direction. This is an all-hands-on-deck effort. It's law enforcement, but it's all of us. And DHS is the coordinating agency in the federal government, and they were told to shut down in 2017. We've started that right back up.
The ADL, lastly, also has said that the white supremacist organizations are recruiting. They're putting out more literature in New Jersey.
Yes.
Why is that something that they believe is going to appeal to people in our state?
Well, it's not going to appeal to most people in our state or any state, right? We're talking about people who are on the fringes, but who are being radicalized by this angry propaganda online, which unfortunately, right now, is being reinforced by some of the political rhetoric at the very highest levels. Political rhetoric that divides people on the basis of race or national origin, this anti-immigrant rhetoric that we're seeing, unfortunately, from the president, that immigrants are an infestation or that they're invading our country. The stuff he says at rallies to get applause, when it seeps into this, the fringes on the internet, there are people who take it seriously and who conclude that they've got to do something about it. And the result is every single synagogue in my district either has armed security or is struggling to decide whether they need to take that step.
All right, Congressman, thank you very much for your time being here. Congressman Tom Malinowski.
Thank you.